Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Xyzal is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Xyzal keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all, take Xyzal. At night.
Hey, it's Haley Steinfeld. When everything requires your attention, it can be tough to figure out what to prioritize. But I'm here to talk to you about something that you should always put first, your breast health. In fact, if you're 40 and over, you should be getting screened once a year. And if you're under 40, it's never too soon to visit yourattentionplease.com to learn about your breast cancer risk. So go on, pay the girls some attention and take the time to find out your breast cancer risk at yourattentionplease.com. Trust me, your future self will thank you.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Alyssa and Erik, I have brought us together because it is Valentine's Day, and I thought, what better way to celebrate the holiday of love than talking about literary couples that we love? So I think each one of us is going to bring 3 couples to the table and discuss in depth why we like them, what makes them feel special. Obviously, I'll go last because I'm just the lowly producer, but which among the two of you?
Oh, we're going to do like one at a time. Let's round robin this.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But who wants to be the starting point?
Alyssa, you start.
Okay, I would like to start with, you guys can't see, but Erik put his chapstick on in the craziest way while
It
Matt
was
doing
pretty
that
insane.
intro.
Yeah. It was seductive.
I know.
It was seductive.
It's Valentine's Day.
It was seductive. Okay, so the first one, I wanted to have the actual book, but I think I lent it out to somebody.
Unacceptable.
So I was looking for it upstairs and I was like, it's just simply not here. Okay, so the first one, I think I actually talked about when we talked about my favorite books of the year, but it's called The Wishing Game. I didn't realize how much I loved it until I was trying to figure out what couples I really wanted to talk about for our Valentine's Day episode. And there is a couple, it's Lucy, who's the main character, and Hugo, who is the love interest. And the reason that I love them so much is because it's like a slow build, and the story is not really about their romance, but you're rooting for them the whole time. And Hugo Reese is like sexy artist. Like,
Hugo's a great name too.
Yeah.
Hugo's a great name. It's such an unexpected hot guy name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's very like kind of jaded, and like you think he's mean, but he's not being mean. He's just like protective over himself and his work and all this kind of stuff, like tortured artist vibes, but with the additional like childhood trauma, so he doesn't know if he's capable of love. But Lucy, of course, Lucy is like full of love, full of it, and also has like some stuff that she deals with, but I think that she teaches him vulnerability in that way, and he gains all of this trust with her. And by the end, I mean, and this doesn't even spoil anything because it's like one of the, I feel like when you read the story, you're like, oh, they're going to end up together. It feels very obvious. By the end, when they get together, it's like the tension throughout the book, and then it finally happens. It just feels like bursting a big balloon, and it's so exciting and so sweet. And it has moments of like spiciness, but it is a genuine sweet story. And so my first couple is Lucy and Hugo from The Wishing Game. I think they're really sweet. I think it's nice to read a story where the love story element is like woven into it, but it's not the centerpiece. I like stories like that occasionally. And I think that was one of the first books that I read coming off of reading the ACOTAR series, which is not that. It is
You're
not.
You're like ACOTAR, which will not be appearing on this list.
Certainly not. I was thinking about that because I was like, I read ACOTAR and I read Fourth Wing, and those are books that have like a lot of they call them romantasy, although
Yeah.
like a lot of the
I
ACOTAR
don't know
books
why
are
I
not
was going
that.
to say penetration. They have a lot of penetration.
Oh.
They do. They do, and because of the way that these, I don't know if I've never read like a straight up romance book, I don't think. So I don't know if this is like true for all of them, but they use the weirdest words for people's genitals in those books.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
It's because
they'll
you
be
can't
like,
repeat words. You have to use different
oh my
ones.
god, it's so gross. It's like he entered
Yeah.
my sex, and I'm like, I'm gonna kill
His
myself.
thickness.
I'm gonna, yeah. Ugh,
It
it's so
it
gross.
literally makes me think every time I read like any romance novel of that scene in 10 Things I Hate About You, where it's like clear that the guidance counselor is secretly writing a romance novel and she's
Oh,
like, what's
yes.
another word for a
Peter.
male penis? Like,
It's just so bad. And I like stories that I love a story that is spicy, and one of my other ones is spicy, but reading a book that actually had like that sweet, it like grabs you by the heart and just like, oh, it's just so sweet. And yeah, I thought it was like innocent enough and playful enough and fits in really well with the story. So they're my first couple.
I feel like that, like the guy, it's always the guy too,
Mhm.
who like just doesn't think he deserves love, and he's always like,
Yeah.
"We can never work out because of my childhood. I
Yeah.
had such a dark, sad childhood, and I'm undeserving of love." I genuinely think that's like one of my favorite tropes because it's like,
Oh,
you're an idiot. You're so stupid.
kiss
Just wait.
me. Yeah. And actually I also realized I was looking up the Wishing Game because I was curious like what the age range was, because I remembered it not being like very spicy, but like it's clear that like something happens. And it actually is rated for middle grade and up. And so that I think is also a testament to like the level of like romance that's involved is actually like really sweet and innocent and still like as an adult really enjoyable to read. And you have the benefit of Hugo, who is, you're so stupid, kiss
Hugo.
me.
Hugo. Perfect.
Hugo.
Perfect
Hugo.
name.
Eric, who's your first couple?
So I'm gonna come out the gate strong because here's the deal. I think it's Katniss and Peeta from Hunger Games.
Wow.
I genuinely think they are one of the best couples because there's basically zero romance for them
Mm.
until the last book. And if anybody says that they are Team Gale, I immediately think that there is something wrong with them. And I also think that they did not read the books
Mm.
because in the books, it is a very different ending from the movie. That is one of the only things that I am pissed off about the movies. I think number one, the second or the third movie didn't need to be two movies. That was just a cash grab, whatever. But they changed the fourth movie to make Gale less of a war criminal,
Mm.
and it pissed me off because it basically undercut the entire purpose of this whole fucking series. And I got so angry that after I watched it with my partner, I like paused the end credits. I didn't even turn it off. I just paused it and I looked at him and I told him everything that actually happened in the book. And by the end, I'm like in tears and like feel like, and Gale is such a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I hate him. He's horrible. And he was like, "Oh, okay." But no, for Katniss and Peeta, I think their story is so sweet. Just because Peeta obviously is in love with her, like since way before he even went to the Hunger Games.
Mm.
Um, but I like the fake dating aspect of catching fire and everything, and I love how there's just so many different things that happen in their romance that should be a deal breaker. Like, I mean, I know he was brainwashed, but he did try to kill her. So it was like,
Right. For most people, that would be like,
yeah. But she
maybe we
still
don't.
saw past all of that. She's like,
Yeah.
and then that's I think one of the really sweet parts when he's like, he's trying to figure out what's real and what isn't, and he'll like bring up a memory and it's like a sweet memory and she's like real, and that's one of the things that like continues afterwards, like in the epilogue when she's talking about their life together, and he'll like ask her about like if they're in love real or not real, and she's like real.
Well, okay, so as you're telling me this, I was thinking like, God, if I were Katniss's friend and she were telling me about PETA, I would be like, you need to leave this guy alone and he needs to leave you alone and you need to never speak again. I'd be like, girlfriend, we need to check in. We need to do a gut check. I don't like this. But then I thought to myself, reading a book is kind of like a friend telling you something, but not really, because you're getting all of the perspectives. Like, you're getting all of the
Yeah.
perspectives and, like, depending on the narrator, the truth. So I guess I thought myself into a hole and then thought myself out of it. But
They've got their trauma bond. I mean, that's like
there's trauma.
unbreakable. They can get through anything.
Right. And it's kind of like, it's like the way that I imagine, like, when famous people date each other, it's like always they're always fucked up. Both of them are always fucked up, but because they're both fucked up, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah.
understand it more than anyone. Like, Katniss and PETA would understand their situation more than anyone ever could. Like, how could Katniss date somebody, like marry somebody else,
Exactly. That's a great point. Because
and
then
like
they just be like, oh, so tell me
explain?
about your time in the Hunger Games. Tell me about the
Right.
revolution. They'd like think it's cool and shit.
Exactly.
Tell
It
me
just
about that time you shot Julianne Moore with an arrow instead of the president.
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence, tell us about it.
That's a really
That's
good
a great
one.
couple. Yeah, that's
That's
really
a
good.
really, really good one.
I think they're great. And it is YA okay. So
Yeah.
let's start off with a YA book.
Yeah.
So this is the only non-YA book because I refuse to pick one of my co-host Erik J. Brown's books, even though Lose You to Find Me had me sobbing on an entire flight because I was so in love with those characters. But I'm going to go with probably one of the first books that I remember just being beside myself crying almost every page because I love this couple and hated the situation that they were stuck in throughout the entirety of it, which is Henry and Claire Anne from The Time Traveler's Wife.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the conceit of just like this woman basically having to live her life only occasionally seeing the love of her life because he's trapped in this time travel cycle that he can't stop from happening is like insane. And like the movie doesn't hit me quite the same way, but like when I was reading that book, I was like, oh God, I just want things to work out for these two somehow. I want this to end. We also, just weird note, like 4 years ago, HBO produced like a mini series based on it that is just like gone. Like I didn't watch it when it came out, and I was like, oh, you know what? I never watched that Time Traveler's Wife TV series. It's like wiped off of
Doesn't
Max.
exist.
It's like they
They
just
took it off of Max?
they just like wiped it off of the planet like 2
That's
years
so
after they
weird.
released it. So yeah, I hate digital
Hate that they
streaming
do
to a
that.
certain extent. Yeah, I just love that couple. I think that is like, I don't know, I saw someone describe it as like a doomed love, and like it is one of the most compelling doomed love stories that I can think of, because you are just like, they're not going to work out. There's no way that this can work out, but they're like so wildly in love with each other that you're just like killing yourself every page, hoping that somehow the time travel for Henry will stop happening and they'll be able to have a happily ever after, while knowing that that will basically never be the case.
And isn't it the like, isn't it early on that he like shows up somewhere and like is covered in blood because he's injured, and she like
Yeah, she can't do.
immediately just thinks about that like the whole time?
Yeah, like when she's a little girl, she sees him show up covered in blood, and she remembers that her whole life, that at some point he's probably going to die from an injury that she already witnessed.
Yeah. I mean, that's just normal love. At some point, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
It's just hopefully not violently and we won't witness it, but.
Ideally, yeah. But who knows? But yeah, that's my pick right there.
I did want to watch the HBO miniseries too, and I didn't watch it.
Yeah,
So
no,
I guess I
well,
can't now.
Yeah, now we don't have a chance to.
How long ago did the miniseries come out that it's gone already?
It was like 2021. Like it was
That's
in
not
like the
that
last
long.
4 or 5 years. Yeah.
That's suspicious. I feel like there's a lawsuit or something that happened there.
Well, I think it was also right at that point where HBO Max became Max because they merged with like Warner Brothers and Discovery.
Oh.
And I don't know, like, I don't understand the behind the scenes stuff, but I think they like looked at all of the stuff that was on HBO Max and probably looked at how often it was being watched and how much they had to pay per stream
Mm.
or something. And we're just like, well,
Yeah.
this isn't worth keeping around. Like, no one's watching it.
guess.
That's
And
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Because they recently changed the way actors, writers, and directors and everything get their residuals based on streaming. So they've started pulling things off that aren't popular enough to make it worth it. Like, they'll keep Friends on there because they get Friends for like X amount of dollars, and then they just assume in a P&L sheet somewhere it says this many subscribers are watching Friends, so we're getting this much money from it.
Yeah.
It's all budgets and accounting.
Yeah.
Gross.
It's annoying and dumb.
So anyway,
back
to
Love and Alyssa.
Okay, so this is a stupid pick. Again, as I was trying to think about, like, because when I read books that are like love stories or like romance, they are not typically young adult, at least in the past year. And so I was like, what are young adult books that I've read that are not Eric J. Brown that are young adult? And you know what I thought of?
What?
Twilight. But
oh my god.
I am going to talk about Edward and Bella as one of the worst couples ever.
Oh,
And
a twist.
We're going to have a twist. And I thought about originally bringing up like some of the worst couple, like there's a book called Haunting Adeline that I tried to read and like literally couldn't finish. It was abusive and weird and like it did not like, it was triggering and yuck. And I know people are like down with this like dark romance thing. It was very upsetting to me. That was a no. Absolutely the fuck not. But I was like, that's not young adult. And I want to like think about really where my young adult heart is, which I realized last year I really didn't read a lot of young adult. So this year I really am going to hone in on my young adult life.
Get off all of our past guests off your TBR list.
I know. And they are on my TBR list. It's just been, I've been like really in my, I need to hear about people touching each other's sexes, apparently. It's unbelievable. So anyways, so Edward and Bella, one of the worst couples to ever be written. They are absolutely, first of all, they fall in love knowing nothing about each other, aside from Edward wanting to literally kill her. And Bella's like, perfect. That's actually exactly what I was.
Yeah. Are you single? Because I'm so in.
Right. Off to a bad start. Just a lot of heavy breathing, and suddenly they're in love. And heavy breathing and like light threats. And some sparkles, and then they're in love. And then over and over again, he continues to harm her and put her in harm's way, and she continues to like also put herself in harm's way for this person who, in the beginning, I mean, I guess as their story evolves, you see the commitment and you see like the love, but do they have a single thing in common?
No.
Do they have a literal single thing in common?
No.
They both live in Forks.
That's what they got going for each other.
Right. And that seems to be all of it. And even actually when I think about like who they are as characters, they don't really engage in any like hobbies together either. It's like their love story is purely based on the like forbiddenness of it, and that is just not sustainable. And I think it trained a lot of like the people who read the Twilight series, including myself, to really love this like toxic, you can't have me, but I want you to, but you can't. And like this back and forth, and like training us into thinking that was something desirable, when in reality, nobody wants that. Nobody actually wants that. You think you do and you don't. And when you are 13 years old and you're reading this book, you think that this is something that's fun and exciting, and it's just not. And it's also interesting because you have someone who is emotionally available in Jacob, who is emotionally available, wanting to keep her safe, like actually has known her since she was a child. And what does Stephenie Meyer do? Turn him into a fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
And he ends up being bonded to her daughter.
That's the worst relationship, I think, is him and that baby.
Right. Resume. Why are we doing this?
Renesmee.
I hate
terrible
it.
name.
It's a terrible name. I insist on calling her Resume, because what is Renesmee? And yeah, so my second couple is like kind of all of the Twilight series. I think that we also need to be holding space for Alice and Alice and what the hell is his name?
Jasper,
a Confederate soldier.
Right.
A Confederate soldier who also looks like he's the most constipated person alive. And that's just the movie. Like, that's not the book, but the most constipated actor alive is Jasper in the first book, in the first movie.
You know who is a good couple in that?
Who?
The pack
Rosalie.
leader werewolf
Oh,
and his wife.
yes.
Because like he at one point, like this was before the Cullen showed up, they were together.
Mhm.
And then when the Cullen showed up, all of their like latent werewolf bloodline came out. So he turned into a werewolf first
Yep.
and like accidentally scratched her because he had no idea what was going on. And she still stayed with him and was like, okay, let's get through this together.
Mhm.
And she's also just a really sweet person. And he was really hot in the movie. So
He was really
I'm
hot.
going to say those two. Those are the only two
Yeah,
people in that can be a good couple.
I agree. I agree. And I think I agree. And there's a lot of couples that are clearly based on circumstance and not because they have anything in common. And like that is true, I think, even of like the vampire couples. Like they literally are like, well, you're here, so I guess we're dating. And it's just weird. And I don't know. I think specifically the Bella and Edward relationship created an archetype for people in the early 2000s, for relationships in the early 2000s, where it had to be like dark and forbidden and back and forth and a roller coaster and all this. And there's a million stories like that. It's not the only one that exists like that. But for my generation, everyone wanted their Edward situation, and it's toxic and it's terrible, and they have nothing in common from anything that Stephanie Meyer shared. And Jacob would have been a better choice. So
I don't think Jacob would have been a better choice, but
Yeah.
you don't think he
for a
would have
little
been
bit before they
better?
went to college.
A little bit. Yeah. Before they went to college, she should have just gone to college and met somebody else. Somebody nice.
You know,
She could have dated somebody who composts. That's
yeah.
the vibe she gives.
I think it's funny because when Twilight was first like everything everyone was talking about, and I was just like your typical 20-year-old male hater of it.
Mhm.
And this is coming from someone who literally only read the first book, and I was like, this is so poorly written, I can't do 3 more of these. But the at the time I was like, I don't understand how anyone's team Jacob, just because it's so clear where the end game is. Like you're literally
Yeah.
rooting on, you're cheering on like the losing
Yeah.
team. But as I've gotten like more into even like a great romance show like Jane the Virgin, like there
Mhm.
really was like a compelling argument of like, oh, who should she end up with? Or like you watch Gilmore Girls and you get into that, like which boyfriend really is the boyfriend for Rory? Like there is
Yeah.
this thing where it's like, okay, I get now that the team is way more about like staking a claim and the writer fucked up. Like
Mhm.
that's like where the claim comes in, because you see even like with Harry Potter, there's these people who are constantly shipping like, no, Harry
Hermione.
should have ended up with Hermione. Like the chemistry
Yeah.
was with them from book 1, and then you like realize that you had no one for Ron and changed it. I'm not one of those people. I like the Harry Ginny relationship personally, but yeah, it's just I wanted to clarify that I get that now.
Yeah.
To every Team Jacob person I was a douchebag to in college, I get it now, because
You
like
understand.
I mean, but I would say that Bella is similar to Rory, where like all the options are bad. Like it's
Yeah.
there's,
All bad.
you're just picking the
Literally all
least
bad.
bad option.
She
Like,
could have gone to college, met a guy who composts and like does slam poetry,
yeah, she'd be
and that would have been
so
great.
happy.
She would have found lots of depth with a man who does
Yeah.
slam poetry, and she wouldn't have to live forever.
Yeah,
And she could still pine after the vampire for the rest of her life too, because he would probably
Right.
show up randomly. He would show up at her wedding.
He'd be behind a tree like this.
like has this girl never read Tuck Everlasting? Does she not get how horrible eternal life is? Like
Right. You know what's interesting about Bella is she seems like a character who says that she reads, but doesn't.
Doesn't.
Like, she goes to a coffee shop, splits a book that she's never read but bought used so it looks like she has, splits it in half and just starts reading in the middle of it to look like she's been reading it. She gives me phony vibes.
There was a quote, I've been re-listening to this Friends podcast called Best of Friends, and one time one of their listeners emailed and said, like, what do you think is the favorite book for every member of the Friends group? And I thought one of the best answers they gave was like, Chandler says that it's like Jane Austen, but it's actually like a Calvin and Hobbes comic book. Like, that's the vibe that Bella gives me.
Yes. That's very well put. Very well put.
All right, Erik.
Before we move on from Twilight, I do want to point out the one thing that is my favorite part of the Twilight series was seeing the 5th movie in theaters. Because, Matt, you did not finish the series.
I saw the movies, though.
The movies are an improvement.
That terrifying fake baby that Bella has? Hell yeah.
So horrifying.
I will say the 3rd movie is a good movie.
Yeah.
It is one of the only Twilight movies I would say is genuinely good. Like, from a technical standpoint, and they turn the story into something compelling and interesting. It's a good movie. That being said, the 5th movie is one of my favorite movie theater going experiences of all time, because in the 4th book, what happens is the Volturi show up on this battlefield to meet all of the vampires.
Yes.
Alice walks up, says, you don't want to do this because if you do, this is what's going to happen. I've seen the future, and tells him he loses, and that's it. No details, just says he loses. The Volturi go, okay, good luck, everybody. We'll see you later. And they leave. That's it. That is this 600-page book building up to this gigantic battle, and nothing happens. So in the movie, when fucking Carlisle gets his head ripped off and everybody starts fighting, all of the teen girls in the movie theater start screaming and crying. And they're like, what is happening? This isn't supposed to happen. And I'm laughing so giddy because I'm like, they spent millions of dollars on this movie. They can't have people show up and just meet and talk and walk away. And so I knew that it was just Alice showing them her vision of the future. I was like, that's probably what they're doing, because they're actually not going to kill off all these characters. But like, I was just giddy and so excited. It was amazing.
It was awesome.
I have never felt so much joy in 1 second.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great note. And I didn't read all of the books. By the time they were coming out, I was an adult and I was like, I can't do this. I
was 3 in. I was like, you know what? Might as well see how it finishes.
Yeah. I tried to reread the series recently, like over COVID. And in the first book, as Bella is moving to the wettest place in the continental US, she puts on a black raincoat and says to herself, I hope I don't stick out at school. And that's when I tapped out. I was like, I actually can't do this.
So, so this guy took all of his videos down at some point on YouTube, but there was this delightful, like, British teenage boy who did a YouTube series called Alex Reads Twilight. And all that he would do was like set up his camera, and each episode was a different chapter, and he would just read the chapter out loud to himself and then like edit it down to like a 5-minute video of when he would just read a line of dialogue and just start laughing uncontrollably.
Wait, they're gone? I would love to watch that.
He like wiped them clean. He like put together, because he was also a musician, so he like put together a Patreon, I think, where it was like, hey, if you donate to my music Patreon, like you get access to the Alex Reads Twilight stuff that I did like 20 years ago.
See if you like his music, then you can subscribe.
Yeah.
Shopping is hard, right? But there's a better way. Stitch Fix Online Personal Styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And she sends just for me pieces. Plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what I love and send back the rest. It's so easy. Personal styling for everyone. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. There's nothing better than the perfect jean and going out top combo, or an outfit that perfectly matches your plans. Abercrombie's relaxed jean goes with every occasion. Date nights with something lace, or daytime with a cozy sweater. And their barrel jean will surprise you. It's the trend that will become a staple in your wardrobe. Abercrombie denim comes in tons of rises, fits, and washes. Find your perfect pair online or in store.
Hey, it's Jonathan London of the Geekscape podcast, and I want to tell you all about the first official Geekscape comic book, Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy. This is equal parts sci-fi fantasy, comedic adventure, and pro wrestling entertainment told in a nostalgic style. If you're a fan of 80s films like Conan the Barbarian, Krull, Willow, The Beastmaster, and comedic mistaken identity movies like The Army of Darkness, Three Amigos, and Galaxy Quest, you're gonna love Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy. That's right, I wrote it about my younger brother Paul London, former WWE Cruiserweight and Tag Team Champion. But in this story, he's now washed up, down on his luck, and then magically transported across the universe to a distant planet of sword and sorcery. Once there, he's mistaken to be the hero of the prophecy, destined to free an entire kingdom from the evil sorcerer Ramzar. This is 26 pages of full-color pro wrestling fantasy comic book adventure. Podcast listeners, this is a comic for you. Go to herooftheprophecy.com to learn more. Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy.
Erik, how about you? What is your next one?
So my next one is Alex Claremont Diaz and Prince Henry Windsor from Red, White, and Royal Blue. Have either of you even read this book?
No.
I have not. It's on my list to read. Other Geekscape podcaster Joe Farron loves this book series. Like, this book series in Heartstopper was like him being like, oh, wow, there are sexier queer YA novels than there are queer romance novels.
Red, White, and Royal Blue is not YA, though.
Okay,
it looks like YA, but it is spicy. There are blowjobs and sex on the page. So
Blowjobs and sex.
That's what they should have called it. I would have bought it sooner.
Right. That was
the original title.
Red,
and they
White,
said, you know what, Red, White, and Royal Blue works.
Yep.
But it is about the first son of the United States and the Prince of England falling in love. And it starts off, they are rivals because every time they meet, they kind of just mess up something. And like, I think they are at a royal event, like a wedding or something, and the two of them start arguing and then get pushed into, they like start like kind of tussling a little bit and then fall into a giant like wedding cake. So it's like from that point on, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is obviously they're gonna bang.
Yeah.
And so their PR starts this fake friendship to show that they're just like bros and they just hang out. And so they like start faking it and they like they're texting a lot. But then their texts start to turn really nice, and then they start to become friends, and then they start to become lovers, and then they have to keep it a secret because the president's son can't be banging the Prince of England. So it's very cute and adorable, and it's also this like, I don't know, it's probably like this weird West Wing spin-off universe where politics are actually clean and nice, and they're not all fucking assholes. Because, like, in this one, it's a president, like a liberal female president who is from Texas. So I was like, okay.
A fantasy.
That is the most outlandish thing I've ever heard of.
A fantasy.
So.
I want to read the book just to live in a space where politics is that chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's I think one of the reasons that I read it was because it was just at the time, it was, I think, even 2019. So it wasn't even before the pandemic. But I just remember being like, you know what, this sounds nice and sweet, and I want to see what it's like, and it was great. It was everything that all of the hype lives up to.
Oh, I love it.
The movie was fine.
Mine is a YA novel that just got a sequel to this book released this past year. I want to talk about Liz Buxbaum and Wes Bennett of Better Than the Movies by
Ooh.
Lynn Painter. Have either of you read this one?
No.
No.
Okay, so Liz is a character whose mother died when she was really young, but her mom was obsessed with romantic comedies. So to feel connected to her mom, she watches all of these romantic comedies and desperately wants a life like a romantic comedy. And she's in love with this like guy on the basketball team named Michael, but her next door neighbor is the grungy guy who's also part of the basketball
Perfect.
team, Wes Bennett. And basically, she's so focused on trying to make her rom-com life come to reality with Michael that she keeps missing that she's already in a rom-com storyline with her next door neighbor and lifelong friend, Wes. And just like kind of watching that tug of war happen for like the 200 pages of like, you're like reading the book and you're just like, Liz, you're so stupid. He's like, like they're just so adorable. And they have that thing. And I think they nail it in that high school way where like, now that I'm in a relationship, I totally get it. But in high school, you don't understand that like the best parts of being in a relationship are when you're playfully making fun of each other. But like
Yeah.
she's so young that she's like, he's such a dick. He's just constantly making fun of me. And like you're reading it as an adult and you're just like, oh my God, this like these are the best moments of being in a relationship is those playful moments. So like that book
That is a love language.
yeah. Like that book, I was just like, could not put it down. I think I read the whole book in like 2 days. I was so invested in their story. And yeah, I got the sequel, Nothing Like the Movies, in hardback for Christmas. So I'm excited to crack that open and dive into what happens next for Liz and Wes. Can they survive college? I hope so.
Oh, I hope so. I think they will.
I have a good feeling they're going to be all right.
I do like that. That's another trope I like. It's just when here the whole time kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a classic and it works.
I love
what
it.
was that one that was like that with? What's the one with Kirsten Dunst and like Ben Foster? I feel like is like that.
Well, there's
where
Get
he's,
Over
like,
It,
the
which is
next-door
great.
neighbor.
You're thinking of Get Over It,
Yeah.
where they're in the musical. The other big one is Whatever It Takes, which is Shane West and Dave Franco, or not Dave Franco, the shitty one.
James.
James
Yeah.
Franco. And what's her face, who like never really did anything but the movie Sugar and Spice, where it's his next door neighbor and he plays accordion for her on the balcony all the time, but he doesn't see her as anything more than like his childhood friend, and she's like clearly in love with him. Yeah, man, the 90s teen rom-coms, all home runs. There's not a bet.
Yeah.
Even the worst ones are still like an absolute delight to watch.
I still like Can't Hardly Wait.
Oh, that's like one of my top
mean,
10 movies of all time.
There's
Like,
plenty of problematic shit in it, but I'm like, it's still really fun. Like, and what a time capsule of basically famous people that were not famous at the time and all of a sudden exploded. All of their careers.
I used to play a game with my friends at parties that it was inspired by 6 Degrees to Kevin Bacon, but it was 6 Degrees to Can't Hardly Wait. That there's such a massive cast of famous people that like any movie in 6 moves, you can connect it back to the movie Can't Hardly Wait through how like large of it, because like Jason Segel's in that movie for 30 seconds. Like
Oh my God,
he's just like a stoner.
I was gonna say,
outside.
and like a lot of people are just like in the background at the party and maybe have like one throwaway line or something.
So we'll take a quick pause so I can tell you this quick story. But I wrote an article for Geekscape years ago about Can't Hardly Wait's 20-year anniversary, and the writer and director saw it and then went on my podcast at that time to talk about it, because like they only made 2 movies and both of them are great. They made Can't Hardly Wait and they made Josie and the Pussycats. Both like incredible
I love
films.
Josie and the Pussycats so much.
Me too.
So you might not know this, Erik. The reason why the college or the high school that they go to in Can't Hardly Wait is Huntington High is because he grew up in the Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania, and wrote everything about his high school experience. But he said, like, the reason why so many before they were famous people were in that movie was they wanted age appropriate people. So they just put out an open call of like, we are looking for every actor between the ages of 16 to 21 to be in this movie. So like every up and coming actor showed up, and it was just like, hey, they had like real beer on set. They're like, just drink and hang out in the background and we might pull you aside for a quick line or two. And like in
Wow.
doing that, they just unknowingly had like so many people who would literally 10 years later explode that have like one line
so cool.
scenes throughout the
That's
movie.
crazy.
Like,
That's crazy
Yeah,
and very cool.
he said it was the best time he ever had making a movie, and Josie and the Pussycat was such a bad time making a movie that he was like, I don't know if I want to make movies anymore.
It's so
Wow.
sad because it's a classic for
Yeah.
me.
No, it's
Nobody else
Really?
ever knows about it, but
No,
and
it
he
was
said that was
so
the issue.
good.
Like he had no one was like reining them in on Can't Hardly Wait, and like Josie and the Pussycats, they had to deal with like constant interference from the studio because it was like a property that they thought could be franchised, where like Can't Hardly Wait wasn't. It was just looked at as like a cheap little like throwaway movie.
but I mean, like Josie and the Pussycats. I'm sorry to go off on this
It's
tangent, but it is part
amazing.
of our show. But Josie and the Pussycats, like I don't think you can make that movie now.
Oh, no.
Because it is making fun of. There's all this product placement that is basically making fun of every single product.
Mm.
And it's
Alyssa's
like
got a look on her
it's
face like
it's
she's
not an
never seen this
advertisement for
movie,
these
and
I have, but I don't remember that. Like when I saw
that is
whole-
actually the whole point of the
the whole
movie.
plot of the
I
movie
remember
is that
You
they're
didn't
putting-
realize that it was all
they're
Well,
putting
that's
hidden
what I'm-
messages.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Is I watched it when I was really young, so maybe I just like
God.
was like,
Alyssa, you
They
need to
actually
rewatch it.
brainwashed you with
Yeah,
it.
you need to rewatch it because
That's what I have to
entire
do.
plot of the movie is that they're hiding product placement in people's songs. But as you're watching the movie, everything is a product placement. Like the movie is like overwhelmed with product placement. Which
It makes
he said they got no money from those. Like he was like, we knew,
That's
like the
insane.
brands knew that we were making fun of them. So
yeah,
none
this
of
is
them.
crazy. I'm looking at it. Like I remember the music. I remember
Yeah.
I remember their outfits. I don't
Music's
remember that,
great.
and that's so crazy. Because like Rosario Dawson, Tara Reid. Yeah, I remember this. I remember
Yeah.
this movie, and I do not
You should
remember that.
definitely
so I
watch
need
it
to
again
rewatch
because
You will
it
laugh
will
your-
hit different as an adult. It's so fucking
You're gonna
funny.
Okay.
giggle so uncontrollably throughout.
Okay.
Parker Posey is
Ugh,
insane in that movie.
icon.
All right. Anyway,
I love her so much, and it's just because of that movie.
yeah. Alyssa,
Sorry.
last
Last one.
couple.
Okay, my last couple is unsurprising again, but it's the Abby Jimenez, Part of Your World and Yours Truly couples. And the reason that I'm putting them together is because they are a part of the same cinematic universe, which is part of the reason why I really love it. So like if you read Part of Your World, you hear about the couple that is in Yours Truly, because they're like best friends. So you hear about the couples and their stories are kind of overlapped a little bit. So I like that she did that with her like little world that she was creating. But both of them have couples that I felt like demonstrated love in a way where I was like, oh, this is what we're supposed to be looking for. Like, oh, this is the feeling that I'm supposed to have. I don't feel that right now. And like actually gave me gut checks of where I was at in relationships in real time, which was crazy, because they felt realistic and they felt fun and passionate, but not so outlandish that like the way that you feel with Twilight or whatever. It felt real and grounded and also just so romantic and so kind. And like in Yours Truly specifically, they're writing little letters to each other for a period of time. And if there's one thing about me, I love mail. I love mail. I love letters. I love getting a surprise note. Like that does something to me. And so just these like little things like that are just really kind. And in Yours Truly also, the couple promises to be harmless to one another. And I think that that is like the sweetest, most pure thing that you can say. I actually want to get harmless tattooed on me somewhere because I think it's just really sweet. And so, yeah, the whole Abby Jimenez
Get it on your knuckles.
Yeah,
Harm
harm
less.
less.
And be like, "Ugh."
Yeah, exactly. That I've always thought about, like, how do people decide if they want a knuckle tattoo? That's such like a big commitment, and
I
it's
think
a
you're
little
just born with
serious.
it. You're just
Yeah,
born innately
Yeah.
knowing that it's something you want.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think that's gonna be my, and that's not young adult. That is an adult book. But I could not do a Valentine's Day episode and not mention those those stories because they like changed my brain chemistry in terms of romance. I loved them so much. And Matt, yours truly did something to your brain chemistry too.
Yeah, yours truly really
I
fucked
bought
with.
it based on both of your recommendations. I haven't read it yet,
It's the
but
only book
You
that Barb and I
gotta.
have 2 copies of because we can't get rid of either copy because they're both sentimental to us.
Telling you,
Yeah.
it's really good. So
and we'll definitely let you pick two this time because you technically didn't pick your second one because it was the worst couple. So
yes,
this
the
all
worst.
counts.
Yeah,
It,
well,
it balances out.
yeah, you evened out. Eric, how about you?
Yeah. So mine is Aristotle and Dante from Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe,
Ooh.
which is a YA novel. Have either of you read this one?
No, but that
You
name
should.
has got me putting it on my long list.
I
My
feel like
long list.
I think Ari and Dante are kind of like the blueprint for queer YA romance now. This book came out in like 2012, I think. So it was very early on. And it is just a very sweet story about these two kids who kind of feel like they shouldn't work together because they're very different. Dante's very kind of like introspect, or no, Ari is like really kind of outgoing, and no, he's the opposite. I get them mixed up now. It's been like 10 years since I've probably even read this book. I think it's Ari is the one who's like introspective. Yes, that's it. Okay. So Dante's the one who's outgoing. Ari's the one who's introspective and trying to like kind of he's dealing with a lot of shit at home, and they meet at the like their community pool, and they shouldn't be friends, but they just kind of connect and start talking. And I think it's because Dante kind of like forces Ari to talk, which is I think one of my also favorite tropes is when there's like this like quiet brooding guy and then you have like the golden retriever boyfriend, you know? But it's just about them kind of breaking down each other's walls and connecting, and it's very very sweet, and I think that it is genuinely like one of the best YA romances of all time is this one. And there's a sequel too that like it doesn't deal as much with their romance. It's like a little bit about their romance, but it's more about the two of them growing as people and like becoming young adults and everything. But the first one is A+. Great book. Read it. It's very quick too, because I think like I believe it's like short, really, really short chapters that are maybe like 2 or 3 pages at a time. So it's easy to read.
Love
I think I
that.
read it in like 2 days.
All right. Well, I'm going to end with what I think is one of the most beloved YA romances of all time. And again, talking about doomed love, talking about nonstop crying.
Oh no.
I'm talking about Hazel and Gus from The Fault in Our
Oh,
Stars.
yeah.
I mean, that book, it was funny. That book was one of the books I read when Barb first moved in. And she
So
would
recent.
So yeah, pretty recent. I was very late to this. And she would wake up to me shaking because I was crying so hard reading certain
Aw.
parts of the book. And she's like, why do you do this to yourself? But for those of you who don't know, The Fault in Our Stars is literally about two people who have cancer, two teenagers who have cancer who meet at like a cancer anonymous meeting, not anonymous meeting, but like a
Support group.
Or
a support group. And the whole time you know that there's no way that both of these kids are going to live.
Yeah.
But like the way that they like so quickly, I think what I was really taken aback by with this book compared to all of the YA that I've read up until this point, Erik, yours included, is like, I think so much of YA romance is this like prolonged 200 page, like, when are they going to realize that they love each other? Um, and then like your payoff is at the end of the book, they finally kiss. And with Fault in Our Stars, there isn't that like, it's like they meet and immediately there's like this connection, and it's not about like them realizing that they love each other, but them trying to decide if they're okay with losing one another. And like,
they don't have time for the slow burn. They
yeah,
gotta figure shit out.
and it's like going through that back and forth of like, both of them at different points say like, I love you too much to hurt you when I die. Like, and like that, like, just like the weight of that is intense. So, I mean, that book is incredible.
I don't know how
I
you
think that's
do
one of the
that.
few books that actually made me cry. Like,
Yeah. Oh, John Green like gets like a free pass for the rest of his literary career because he just knocked it so far out of the park with that book that, like, I mean, and I like.
we should have him on.
We should. Let's.
He probably
reach out
actually
to him.
would do it.
Yeah, I mean,
He's a nice person.
He's one of the people who wrote Let It Snow, which is still to this day my favorite Netflix produced movie. But like
it's called something else, right? Or is it?
It's
still
Let It
called Let It
Snow.
Snow?
It's Let It Snow 3 Holiday Romances is the full title, and it's 3 different YA authors wrote 3 different stories, and then they combined it into like a.
That's fun.
Erik, if you've never seen Let It Snow, with your love of Can't Hardly Wait, I've said it's like the Christmas version of Can't Hardly Wait or Empire Records. Like, it's all in one night, and it's like 3 different stories of all these teens all trying to get to the same Christmas party.
I put it on my list after you talked about it on our Jason June episode.
I talk about it on everything because it is like legitimately like my favorite. I think it might be quickly becoming my favorite Christmas movie just based on how much I watch it, even not during Christmas time. But yeah, I mean, I feel like people would have been pissed if Fault of Our Stars wasn't on anyone's list because it is pretty beloved.
That was going to be on mine, but then I remembered Aristotle and Dante. I was like, I'll go with the gays.
It's just so sad. I like have a really hard time with stories that are that sad. Like, real life is very sad. So to like read about a love story in the midst of cancer, it's like just so hard for me to.
It is sad, but like it's still like is an uplifting story, and I mean, it's like bittersweet, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you have that sadness, but there is still like there's hope for her like at the end.
Yeah.
So.
In a similar vein, the other one that I remember really liking, and I read it. Oh, never mind. I thought that this was based on a YA novel, not that I was reading the novelization, was 5 Feet Apart. But that was not based on a pre-existing novel. That was a novelization, I guess, of the movie script.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
They wrote it as a novelization at the same time, though.
At the same time, and the novelization is great. Like, as someone who reads a lot of novelizations, sometimes they feel like a pale copy. Like, it's just like, oh, I'll just watch the movie. But it really did feel like I was tricked all the way until this second researching it to find out that it wasn't based on a pre-existing novel. Wow, crazy. All right, anyway. That is our Valentine's Day special, everybody. So go and get something nice for your loved one. Get them a nice romance novel. One of the 9 books that we mentioned. Well, maybe one of the 8. Don't
get Twilight.
Don't get Twilight. But we'll be back in a couple weeks with some more conversations with some of your favorite YA authors.
This episode is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian makes the team collaboration software that powers enterprise businesses around the world, including over 80% of the Fortune 500. With Atlassian's AI-powered software like Jira, Confluence, and Loom, you'll have more time to do the work that matters. In fact, Atlassian customers experience a 25% reduction in project duration per year. Unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. Atlassian.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.